We help startups and companies ranging from startups to bigger enterprises build out their custom software projects through software development, product management, and product strategy. Big thank you tonight to our interns, Anna and Savannah. Anna is over here. They organized this whole event. They've really been incredible this whole summer, so a big thank you to you guys. And let's no more ado, I don't know. Let Nick take it away, who's our senior software engineer.
Hey guys, I met most of you before we started this, but my name is Nick Camillo. I'm a senior software engineer here at Dev Method. I've been working here for about 2 years. Julia's already given you kind of the brief rundown of what we do here, but I assume that I was invited to moderate this panel because I have done a lot of work in the arts as a musician. I used to do a lot of video production, and currently my client at Dev Method is the Museum of Modern Art, which doesn't really give me any sort of like special things or anything like that, but it matches with the theme, you know. So now I would like to ask each of our panelists one by one to just give a very brief introduction of who you are and what you're currently working on before we dive into some of the questions.
Sure, I'll go first. Thank you. My name is Eva Radke. I'm the founder of ArtCube Nation, which is a professional platform for freelancers in the film, theater, and television industries, Photo 2. And I'm the brand ambassador for PropCart.com. We launched on Saturday. Ask me why we launched on a Saturday later, which is a marketplace for the film industry, particularly props, set dressing, retail, and product placement, cars, all that sort of stuff, anything that you would need for the film. So we just launched this lovely marketplace, and we announced it to the community that has been in place since 2007.
Hello, I'm David Kong. I work at Frame.io, which is a video collaboration platform for the video space, anywhere from commercials, TV, film, YouTube stars, anyone who deals with video. We allow you to work together and work faster and distribute it online. I have the very very ambiguous title of Senior Product Intelligence Manager. Product intelligence basically means that I know all about our users and I help us strategize. So I sort of am the conduit from all of the information from our sales team and our support team and our product management, interviews and all that stuff. And then I work as sort of a consultant to our product managers and our CEO to help us set strategy and our designers to develop features. And I'm sort of a passionate dabbler in many things, art and other, and have worked in film and video and made terrible music videos and shot weddings and all kinds of stuff like that.
Cool. My name is Daniel Dubrovkin. I go by DB. I currently work at AWS, but I think I'm here because of my lifelong art practice, and also I spent 8.5 years building Artsy. I was the company's head of engineering and then CTO until relatively recently. I've had 2 small companies, worked for some big and other things, and freelanced photographer for a few years, and continue making art and talking about technology. I'm an engineer, mostly.
Well, thank you for your introductions. Get started. So, what are some of the biggest technological trends that you guys have seen recently in the art world, and how have those trends shaped or altered the way that you define art making or thinking about art in general?
Well,
just whatever.
yeah, okay, sure.
Speak up.
I wish there were more trends in the film industry, the entertainment industry. There just haven't been enough. I was just telling my co-panelists here that a lot of the prop houses, the biggest ones in LA and in New York, they're using Weebly and they're using Google photo sharing for their inventory. So we're actually creating the trend of actually organizing them, putting them all in one place. I feel like the business that I work in, the film industry and entertainment, is very insular. And there aren't a lot of outsiders that come in and go, hey, you guys need to change everything in the way you're doing it. But as far as like trends I have seen, it's basically communicating with each other. I mean, Facebook groups are pretty popular. Like, hey, I need someone, you know, to come over and help. But other than that, we're creating those trends right now.
So our fine art world has completely been transformed with technology in the last, let's say, 10 years. The biggest change was that the way people discover art has changed. So now it's digital first. If it was go to a gallery, see something before, now it's Instagram, Artsy, and other platforms. And so with that, everyone is getting very serious about technology in the art world from the business point of view. There's now digital teams and engineers working, CTOs being hired by galleries and things like that. You know, Gagosian hired a CTO recently, kind of like a big deal. So that has changed a lot. In the art making, I think what's really interesting is the digital art and net art has been a thing for a very long time. Net art is started in the 60s, or I'm not an art expert by any means, but people have made glitch art with Netscape too, a long time ago. So technology has always been a medium.
Excuse me, what's the definition of net art?
Net art, art made connected to the internet or connected with digital technology, communication in general. As the internet was born, a whole movement of art on the internet was born. So today the trend continues into art on the blockchain. Video art is technology as well. It's much older, with some really major artists that are now. So the new trends are blockchain art. Now AIs are making art. That's another interesting trend, and definitely a trend. And finally, maybe my favorite is generative art made with code, where we program algorithms and to create something repeatable and then snapshot that at the moment, and that becomes a piece of art. And we iterate again and again and look at which ones look good. Something that I personally love and collect.
Well, I'll round it out, I guess, by talking about video, since no one's mentioned video yet, and I'm like the video person, I guess. Video is going crazy, as everyone kind of knows. It's going up and to the right, or for you guys, up and to the right. And I'm sure we'll talk about AR and VR at some point here. VR art is fascinating to me, but we still are. We keep sort of being promised that VR is going to be mainstream next year, every year, and it never quite gets there. But I've experienced some amazing things in VR that makes me believe that it will happen, but it clearly hasn't happened yet. But with video, you mentioned Instagram and people experiencing art through these, through web platforms, mostly social. If you define YouTube as social, but the consumption of art, depending on how you define art, has exploded with the internet, and it continues to explode, right? So you have, you have Vine come and die, and you have TikTok, and you have all of these apps that are not necessarily all video based. Like Instagram has video, but not necessarily. But nowadays, you can be an artist and you can make a cool thing that can be experienced online, and then you can have 1 million views tomorrow, which is something that just was not a thing in the history of humankind until really quite recently. In 2012, I made a video that got something like 100,000 views in the first month, and that was like crazy. That was insane. And now like 100,000 views, like, oh yeah, it's okay. You gotta cross 1 billion for it to be like really amazing. It's just that scale in the last 7 years is just crazy. Question over here, yeah.
What platform was it on?
I was on Vimeo.
Vimeo?
Vimeo,
In
yes.
2012?
2012,
You used
yes.
Vimeo.
Vimeo still exists, but actually, I gotta be careful not to. Well, So, full disclosure,
Go ahead.
we compete with Vimeo, so I'm gonna be throwing shade at Vimeo.
No more questions.
Oh, you keep on asking about Vimeo. I still have that account. I don't pay them any money anymore, but.
Well, I have something to add, actually. I think streaming has actually changed production the way it has been around the world. It used to be LA, New York, and London were the main production hubs, and with so much content being necessary, like New Mexico, for instance, Albuquerque. NBC Universal is building a huge studio there, and so is Netflix. Netflix has production hubs opening up in Spain. I think Paris, and I have to look it up. Anyway, look it. So I think there's so much more demand for it that there's a lot more people working in production, and then the more there is, budgets go down, so people have shorter time so they need what we provide, which is an easier way of access to people, places, and things. So it's just a lot more production. New York used to be a commercial town. Now there's 66 television shows shooting in New York, and all the studios have built huge studios to be able to accommodate them. So to compete with Los Angeles, who is not only dripping market share, there's a leak now because it's spreading all over Europe and all over the United States. So Brexit isn't helping either with that, but that's a whole nother story.
I can totally talk to this more because, so Frame.io, web platform where people can upload videos and get feedback, sort of do the review cycle, compare videos, and we're a web platform, so you can be in LA and you can be working on an edit and hit a button and it goes up to our platform, and then someone in Tokyo pulls out their phone and gives, oh, watch, I like that, I don't like that, circle this, and then it goes back to LA, and that person that I started, I don't remember where I started, LA, and then okay, now you're done, got approval from Tokyo, and I hit a button and it goes to someone else who's working in DaVinci Resolve to do the color, and they're working in Toronto, and we have we have customers all over the world, and we can you do a map and you can just see these points. I wish I could, if we had a screen, I could have shown you this a super cool map to prove exactly what she's saying. And unfortunately, we were in around 10 years ago, but you would have seen a huge, overwhelming majority of content being produced in LA, and then a little in New York, and a little bit happening, and now the world is opening up. Absolutely opening up.
The tools have gotten a lot better. A lot more is electronic and not human.
Yes,
humans doing the work. Right?
Yeah. Well, there's with the tools thing. I mean, when I was starting out in filmmaking, the first camera that you actually could afford that could shoot 24 frames per second, which is sort of the film look, is what you want to do. That came out in 2004, maybe. And before that, in order to have a cinema camera, you had to spend $100,000, or on a real film camera or a digital cinema camera, like George Lucas shot Episode 1 on Sony cameras that were $200,000 each. And then in 2004 maybe, right around there, the DVX100 from Panasonic came out, where you could shoot 24 frames per second on this camera that was $3,000. And then a few years later, I bought my first DSLR in 2010 maybe.
Was that the 5D?
Yeah, so actually it was a T2i. I didn't have that kind of money.
Yeah.
But yeah, the T2i, which cost me a few $100, and I wish it looks amazing. So there's a revolution also in the tools. They call it the democratization of video. Sorry, I'm going to talk a lot about video because video is my thing. But you guys, you need to jump in, especially you, because
I've got a new question.
Okay, keep going.
So we talked a little bit about how the tools that people are using has been shaking up the industry, shaking up the locations of where all these things are happening, and opening up all sorts of new opportunities for the advancement of the arts. Can you guys talk a little bit about the way that these new technologies, not necessarily those new technologies, but new technologies in general, have changed the way that people are interacting with art? Not necessarily just consuming it, but actually interacting.
Yeah. Well, I think the digital camera example is a great one. It's just a normal evolution. Cameras have existed for a rather long time, but they're now computers, right? And I love the example of the camera where a 1950s Nikon lens is mounted on a 2012 DSLR. It still works together. Well, we've produced so many images, and now the way we interact with art is digitally. There are a few really interesting ways where people are trying to push that further. There is AR, there is VR. I think maybe to not answer your question, this is how people still don't interact with art. They're not quite in AR or VR, even though like everybody has an app on the phone that can do it.
What do you mean with that?
Like the Artsy app, you can go and like hang an artwork right there, right now. In
But people don't use it.
AR. People use it. It's cool. It's actually quite impressive, but it's not a mainstream scenario.
I see.
It hasn't caught up yet. It's like, wow, I just like constantly want to go and hang stuff all over my walls, and then
So I
use
can
my
see
phone
the
to go like this. Yeah. In 2010, we built a artwork recognition prototype. So basically, at Art Basel 2011, you could go with the phone and iPhone, I don't know, 4.3, an old iPhone. You could point at an artwork, and it would recognize the image and tell you, okay, this is this artist and that artist. And everybody thought it was super cool and completely useless. Because one, I'm looking at the artwork, there is a tag below, it tells me what it is. So it's not very useful for me to recognize what the work is. Maybe I want more information, that's kind of a cool idea, right? And then I can save it or something like that, I don't have to go and like, but then the weird thing was like standing in front of an artwork with a phone. People didn't want to do that. They didn't want to stand at Art Basel in front of a work with a digital device. It was weird. Now you go now, everybody has got a phone taking pictures of the artworks, which you can find online, all of it, in its high resolution format. Everybody wants to take pictures of the thing. And we basically consume, I don't have my phone in my pocket, but we consume art, I think, like this now. Constantly with a phone in front of us. I'm not sure if it's a selfie, if it's AR, or something else. So I guess that's my summary. The way we interact with art now is through a digital device, like physically in front of our face.
I feel like it's sad. I mean, I totally see that. You go to a museum and everyone's just looking at their phones and they're looking at the little tiny, not quite in focus image of the beautiful piece of art that's right in front of them. They're just staring at their phone, but
The Mona Lisa photos of, I mean, it used to be all the people just looking, like a donut of people around the Mona Lisa. Now they all have their phones out, one top.
Or their
of the
iPads.
other.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot to add. I feel like, the way that there are lots of interesting concepts, and there are interesting installations, and there are interesting AR things, but none of them have really caught on that I've seen. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but.
All right, well then I have some more specific questions for you guys individually to take a break from the group conversation. So I used to do a lot of video production, and I had to sometimes collaborate with others, and it was always kind of a nightmare because you're dealing with giant video files, and there weren't really tools to augment collaboration in easy ways, and suddenly Frame.io enters the market. Wondering, as an engineer, what kind of technologies that Frame.io uses to enable?
Yeah, well, it's not a crazy complicated stack. We make use of AWS all over the place. But on the subject of the amount of real processing it requires to deal with video, we are completely hosted in the cloud. So you throw your stuff up in the cloud and you consume it on devices or on the browser, etc. The benefit of the cloud is that you can use all the processing you need to process those videos without having to worry about the device. Similar to, you probably have heard of the gaming companies that allow you to basically rent a server online, to a high-performance server to run your very visually complex video game. AWS allows us to. I know you can't speak on behalf of AWS today, but allows us to.
You can.
So I'll tell you all about AWS. But allows us to churn through huge amounts of video very quickly because you don't have to worry about the device. So someone can be shooting on their iPhone I/O, and then we can churn through a long clip and produce proxy formats and various things that will stream quickly and easily. So the other thing is that we get from from today's sort of cloud infrastructure is the bandwidth. Like we don't have to build the infrastructure. We can just, AWS provides accelerated uploading, so you can throw a large file that would be sort of hard to deal with on your own computer. And we're nearing the point where people are beginning to just host their files in the cloud instead of on their computers, which is crazy to a lot of filmmakers who deal with large files, very large files. I have a data server in my basement with terabytes of video that I've shot over the years, and it's becoming. It will soon be a time will come when I will just throw all that up online and stop managing it myself. So. Yeah, and then we have a JavaScript web app. We have a native iPhone app, which won an Apple Design Award, by the way.
Congrats.
Thank you. I didn't work on it, but thank you all the same. And the ubiquity of JavaScript and React and things like that allows us to run on pretty much any sort of device, which is great. Are there any specific questions about how our tech works that you have, or you want to? I mean,
You nailed the general question that I asked.
Okay.
Can I add something? I think for someone who bought their first hard drive, a 250 megabyte hard drive for $1,400, the idea of, in like the 90s, the idea of having infinite storage is a really important and weird one. I think we're literally nearing the ability to, like, why would you delete anything anymore? When I have a Dropbox account and I've stopped worrying about this. I'm like, okay, $100 a year, and then tomorrow maybe 200 for like I don't know how much more storage, and I just don't have to think about it anymore. It's just everything goes there.
Yeah,
forever. It will never be lost.
and we even have archiving solutions built into some of these services via Offer. So when you're done with your work in progress, click a button, and that gets written. So anyone knows what LTO tape is, that gets sort of automatically put off into a long-term storage format. But I think there was a question over here.
Yeah, I have a question. I noticed you mentioned the storage part, but AWS gets very expensive when you're using processing, and this is being charged. The more processing you use, the more charge.
Yeah.
Like, do you guys feel any cost pressure from if you're going to run the entire operations on AWS?
Yeah, well, so we don't allow you to do arbitrary processing of your video through us for free. You really just you throw up your video and we generate proxies, and we are starting to do some things to allow you to do some manipulations of it. For instance, if you have a watermark, you may want to, for a high security situation, you want to put dynamic watermarks in. That starts to cost a little bit more, and then we'll actually price watermarking is basically, if I'm watching a very high security asset, which people are doing in Frame.io now, say, if I'm watching latest episode of Game of Thrones, that has gotten leaked in the past. If it gets leaked, huge amounts of money are lost. So my name, my IP address, and my email address are scrolling through the video the whole time. So that if it leaks, everyone knows it was me who did it, right? And to do that, we have to generate on the fly, for every user, we have to generate a unique video for them. And that costs more, so that's more processing.
It's impressive.
So,
it's pretty smart.
And it's real fast, which is even cooler. You click the button, and it starts playing. But and that prevents us from taking advantage of some nice things like some caching that we do otherwise. But we do charge more for things like that kind of watermarking feature.
All right, so it's Eva or
Eva, please. Yes, thank you.
So Eva, what are some of the unique needs of artists that you would say that ArtCube is able to supply?
So, really good question, thank you. So there's mainly two things that we do, which is there are lots of niche artists that can find work on ArtCube, and another problem that we solve is that it's not getting the job, it's the problems start once you get the job. And a lot of artists spend a lot of their time alone. So for instance, the niche artists that we work with sometimes is a chalkboard artist or a graffiti artist, or miniature makers, quilters, knitters that are needed immediately to fulfill a need on a film set or whatever. So there are clients and someone says, oh my gosh, I need 1,000 hand knit Christmas items. So that's something that we needed. And so we found a freelance knitter, one of my clients in San Francisco. She's like, well, we actually need 10 of us to sit around and do this very quickly. So I was just telling you this story. And so finding those, and then she got her knitting circle together, and they hurried up and made all these, flew them to New York the next day, and they made it on set. And so, or a chalkboard artist, which is a very specialized thing. Someone to make a custom inflatable for you. There are 5 of those companies in the United States. And so a lot of the platforms that offer jobs, Fiverr and all that sort of stuff, they don't work for these specialized niche artists. So that's where we come in, and we're in 100 cities around the world, so we can find somebody for you. And also,
real quick, we may not realize, but when you watch a shot in a film, everything you see was chosen and designed. Like if you see a shot of a hotel lobby, they took everything out of the hotel lobby and decided exactly what goes into every moment, every little piece, every carpet and everything.
Yeah.
And these
It's
people
like-
have to come up with all that stuff.
yeah, and like literature, nothing is an accident, so nothing is an accident when you see a film, and so everything goes in there. But also, getting the job is just when the problems start, because then there are changes. Like it's Sunday night and you shoot in the morning, and it was Christmas all week, and now it's Thanksgiving. And you need extra hands. And so being able to get that last minute instant, like you need 20, carpenters and scenic artists to show up tomorrow at 7 a.m. Here's the rate, here's the everything. So it's the panic industry is really what we serve, is like where we, clients change their minds all the time, am I right? And you have to produce. And that's where being able to communicate with your fellow artists and your fellow artisans to get that job done becomes really important. I think those are the 2 biggest values that we bring. You're not alone in the world, and as this weirdo little artist that you are, you're going to get work and get some great pay out of it too. And it'll be on the big screen or the little screen, whatever that may be.
So your business idea comes across to me as something that seems so obvious as in terms of something that should have been existed already. You know what I mean? I'm wondering what that moment was like for you when you realized that it didn't exist.
It was in 2007 when I put this I worked in the film industry as an art department coordinator, which produces the art department. And I made this really bare of a job happen, but I couldn't give away a free mid-century credenza in New York City because Craigslist failed me. So I'm like, this is baloney. Why are we doing it this way? This is terrible. So I started a Google group. And that Google group grew, and then there was LA and Chicago, and then it became a full-time job. And I'm like, we can't stay in Google groups either. This is terrible. So I said, well, guys, if you want me to keep doing this, press this button for $5 a month, and we'll develop a custom platform just for us. And that's what we did. And it does seem really obvious, but the technology caught up to our needs. I started in the business when there was an emergency, they paged us 911. so the technology caught up to us, and and then it's a kind of a catch-22. So technology made us faster, so the time limits got shorter and budgets got shorter, and then because you can just make it happen on your phone, right? And so and technology is still catching up with our industry and making these possible, like marketplaces for rented props. In the past, you had to either go there, take a photograph of it, go back to the office, email it to everybody, get some approvals, make sure it's still available. Oh, it's not, shoot, now we need a backup plan. And now you can go Black Couch on PropCart, and all of the black couches that are available in New York City, participating members that is, show up right there. You make a list, you send it to everybody, approvals happen in not 24 hours, 24 minutes.
So it seems kind of like you let this business develop organically after you had the initial idea. You kept growing it in an organic way until you got to a breaking point and then needed to find a way to innovate in order to
suit our needs,
suit
right?
needs, basically.
Because for Google Groups defaults to replying all. No one wants those
Right.
emails. It was stuff like this.
Yeah.
So it was Google's interface that was like, buy, or no more of our data for you. So yeah, we just had to. And then Facebook groups started coming together, and just talking to one another. What we don't. The problems are the same no matter where you're making your product. At least for us in this industry, whether it's London or Paris or LA or out in the middle of nowhere in Idaho. So that's the thread that strings this entire community together, is that we all have the same issues, which is last minute changes, we need crew, and I need to talk to somebody fast. I guess I realized that like everybody, I was the only one in my category, there's only one art department coordinator on every job, but there are 50 art department coordinators in the union in New York City. Why aren't we talking to each other? Great story. When I first started that, I was working on some football commercial with some like 5-star football player, and he would only stand on this certain AstroTurf that I had to have flown in for $3,000 from Atlanta. And then he stepped on it for 5 minutes, did his line, and then walked off. And then here, am I supposed to put that into a dumpster? So I put it on, at the time, a Google group, and I was like, free AstroTurf, who wants it? There were like 50 people in the group at the time, I just started it. And they're like, Ava, we just had an emergency and where are you? I'll still work up stage 1. I'm on stage 3, I'm coming right over. And it was this huge light bulb, like this is going to work. Like, not only did I not know my friend who I hadn't seen in ages, and I was really happy to see and give a hug to in the hallways too, was there. But they saved money. And I don't know what happened to the AstroTurf, but I didn't put it in the dumpster. And so it was just like that, and that's just like, this is gonna work, we just gotta keep on adding users and more people, and it did.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so DB, you were at Artsy for quite some time. I'm wondering your opinion and your thoughts on how a company that's focused on the discovery and collection of art and fine art, how does that differ in its technological needs from companies that exist in other verticals?
It's a good question. I think one of the preconceptions about an art company is that it's some kind of very special thing, and the companies, especially in the auction houses, galleries, they think of themselves as something quite unique. Artsy has from the beginning tried to be a 100% pure tech company, which means technology is part of everything that we did, and technology is a prime thing. It's not an IT function, it's not a utility function, but it is how everything is made. And I think if you think of technology companies, it's very much the Ubers of the world today, the Googles, and so on and so forth. So the kind of companies where everything breathes and lives technology, and everyone uses technology at every step of the way. So that's Artsy tried to be no different than that, but simply putting the subject matter front and center, which is the most important thing, is art. We called it. We tried to build something worthy of the art that was put online. So, yeah, very much the same.
It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's good that you guys put the art front and center though.
Yeah. I think any company that has a subject matter like fine art, like art in general, has to understand its values and build something based on those values. What are we doing this for? What is the purpose of all of this? And art is the most important thing. This is why museums are being built, and why they're so beautiful, is because they house works that belong to humanity. They don't belong, as my children will go see the same art, and their children hopefully will too. This survives us. It belongs to all of us, to humanity at large, not to just the instance of people that exist around them. So that's a huge responsibility. Putting something online that is that belongs to the entire world is a big deal. And I think one of the reasons why Artsy is successful is because it always focused on making art the forefront. Yeah.
So you spoke briefly at the beginning of this about how the way people are being introduced to art is changing. And so at the MoMA, where I go to work every day, which is unfortunately currently closed until October 21st, while they renovate, they have Starry Night as one of the prime tourist attractions of the museum. And that's something that I remember as a child being shown in elementary school, like pretty much either at the dawn or before the age of the internet. And I was wondering what your thoughts are on how the internet is going to change what those super famous works are for the next generations?
It's a good question. For Starry Night is it's an interesting, good artwork.
I love that.
Me too. I think what's going to happen. It has already happened. Is that these works are simply accessible to everyone on the internet, and that's how it should be. The quality of these prints, the works reproduced in all the stories, they varied, and sometimes they would be cropped, and sometimes they come out of context. The internet is the equalizer for access. And so now everyone will have access to all that information, has access today of all that information in one place. And that's huge because we are privileged to have access to those works either in person, the museum to which you go every day to work. But the majority of the world does not. And cannot dream of having those works. And I remember my family were refugees in Europe and from the Soviet Union. I got the CD-ROM of works from the Tretьяков Gallery, and it had 60 images of it from the Tretьякov Gallery. They would load slowly, but it was a thing, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I cannot go back, but I can see the digital version of that, and that's the books. This is just more a different medium for the exact same thing that books did, but maybe a little less heavy. So I think that's a big deal, and I think more works become in today's world. More works are famous, and more works are not known, and that access is now towards to all of them is out there, and that's wonderful. Go look online for all those works, and then go see them in person. And by the way, I went back to Russia in May and went to the Tretьякov Gallery, where they had a rapid retrospective, which had something like 200 paintings. He painted some of the most famous Russian works. I never thought I'd see those in real life. The only way I saw them was mostly digital, and there were some works that were brought to the Guggenheim for the Russia show. That's exactly how I think what the internet enables. You see the most famous work maybe on the internet, and you want to go see the real thing. And the MoMA is growing in attendance very significantly because of the internet. People are going because the Starry Night is there, and if I've seen it as a child digitally on paper, whatever, I just want to know where it is, and I want to go see the real thing. Tretьякov Gallery has the black square, the one my image. It's opposite sides of the world. They have there's many Russian jokes about the black square or the other way square, which we're not going to digress into.
To jump on that last point about how putting art online doesn't stop people from going to real places, and seeing it in person, I add another layer on that. So I used to work at Khan Academy, online school, wonderful place, and we started out just teaching math and branched out all sorts of subjects, and one of them was art history. And we had these two wonderful professors, Beth and Stephen, who would they would put a famous work of art on the screen and just talk about the art and how amazing it was. And they were both professors of art history. And so millions of people around the world got to understand what makes these works of art really amazing from someone who's just like an absolute expert in the thing. So you can be in your sort of, you can have your middle school class where you learn like, oh, this is what Starry Night is, and look at those funny brush strokes. I'm like, oh, that's cool. But most students aren't getting that kind of depth of understanding of what makes these pieces of art unique and amazing. And with the internet, which is 100% of what is, Khan Academy would not exist without the internet at all. And technology, we can appreciate these things, and honestly, it makes me want to go see them more. Because you learn about art in school usually, and sometimes you talk about art with other people. But if you can really appreciate that art and learn it, then it makes you really want to go and see it in person. So it's both I get to experience it, but I also get to experience why it's amazing, which I might not get standing in the gallery, honestly, right? You might get a little plaque with a couple lines, right, but you're not going to learn about Van Gogh really, and what was unique about him. You don't get that just walking in the museum necessarily.
In the same way that you would a dedicated art course.
and sometimes people are intimidated to ask, and the information being available there lets anyone who's interested read it. We can truly now associate metadata with images. It's not just about images by any means. And I think that we can verify that information and make it good and create reliable sources that are known for having something that's true. And so that if I've never seen the Mona Lisa, I'm not Googling Mona Lisa and I'm like, is the one with the Mona Lisa with a mustache meme the real one or it's not the real one? You can actually now find good resources to tell me what's true, what's not true.
So
Great for education. And by the way, one more thing. The fact that you've given an example of professors talking about the works, you have to understand the majority of images in contemporary art are copyrighted by the artists and have very stringent reuse laws. So there is textbooks about art where they were not able to use the images and reproduce them in any form or shape. So the textbooks talk about the art, about the visual part of the art, and don't have the actual artwork in them, which is absurd. Artsy did a partnership with the DOE, creating, I think, was 60,000 works that were cleared of all copyright and dealt with legally. We had to contract, 5 different firms and make sure it all clears out before having the data set. But teachers in elementary school, like, thank you. My headmaster is telling me I could just use those and not get in trouble with lawyers. Like, I'm teaching 5-year-old kids should be able to use Starry Night. Well, that's public domain now, but there's tons of works that are not public domain and very problematic. And museums are having open data and a lot more of these initiatives where the whole copyright issue is resolved. It's super important.
I got sued by the owners of the trademark for Rene Magritte's Ce n'est pas un blank when I was in college because I made a T-shirt that sort of copied that.
That happens a lot.
I made a T-shirt that copied the famous painting by Rene Magritte, which is the pipe, and it says, "This is not a pipe."
You made a T-shirt, but you didn't sell it.
Oh, I was selling the T-shirt, yeah, but
Like a lot?
I was just starting to sell a lot when he sued me, and I had to stop selling it.
The fact that it's copyrighted is absurd. Yeah.
It's a huge problem in the film industry too. So we have cleared art, so that has permission from the artists. There's cleared graphics. So if you always see it like you're drinking a Coca-Cola. That can't be unless they give us permission. So there's graphic art that you can download where it's a wrap. You print it out, you wrap it around your soda can, then you're just drinking generic beer. And cleared art is a really, really, really big deal because you can get sued all the time. It happens constantly. But same for labels, any sort of thing with a graphic T-shirt or whatever, So and even plaids like tartans.
Wow.
Yeah, so patterns. So like Burberry, you have to get permission from Burberry to use their classic, Burberry tartan. It's copyrighted, and so you have to be very aware of that. So having those cleared items from wine bottle labels to menus to even flyers you would see on the street, album covers, etc. They all have to be available somewhere and done by a graphic artist. And if there's a place, like what I keep on talking about, I know, but it applies. Prop card. Now you can just go, I'll take all of those blues album covers because they're cleared, and we're not going to get in trouble with any artists, photographers, or studios or whatnot.
And interestingly, the laws have trouble catching up with reality. Like, film has so much going on, right? And you have to clear all these items. And the next step is even more interesting. I was a judge at MIT Hacking Arts, and somebody made a project where you could go and talk inside a Magritte painting. So the man with the
awesome.
apple and the hat in front of his face. You don't see the face, but it was a VR experience, and you would walk into this painting, go look at the man from the side, and the apple would be a foot ahead, and you would go look at his face, which you could never see, and it was improvised, but something, and say, "Can you please explain to me why you have a hat and an apple in front of you, he'd
Wow.
turn towards you and explain the story behind the
That's so
painting.
cool.
So,
Super cool.
am I breaking the law by using copyrighted images or some other variation of that in VR? That's like a whole other dimension. The laws will have to debate on those, but technology is wonderful. It allows some very interesting things, and kids love learning this
Well,
way.
sometimes it's easier to get forgiveness than permission.
That's true. That was my. That's what I was thinking. That was
Yeah,
wrong.
it didn't work.
Okay, so I used to run an arts blog in another life many years ago, and I remember this is reminding me of an article I posted about this person who got arrested because they set up a camera and filmed themselves just smashing this like giant glass window as like and claimed that it was a work of art, and everybody in the art community was in an uproar about whether or not that was just vandalism or whether whatever he was doing was actually art. And it reminded me of what you were just talking about earlier about not necessarily generative art, because that is a little bit more intention, but art created by neural networks that are pretty much not really, you can't really call that something that was made by a person anymore, per se, because clearly like they're using existing pieces of art or existing images that were photographs taken by actual people as input to the art that is created through the process of training these neural networks. But I'm just wondering what you guys think about how the definition of art is changing as the input from humans is sort of just leaving entirely in a lot of ways.
Oh, I love that question. So I use my definition of art is not mine. I actually don't remember who said it, but I believe art begins where sanity ends. So applying sanity to any of those things is like, okay, is this art? Is this insane or is this not? And therefore, this is where it lives. So again, or some kind of neural net generated art. I think if there's a person calling that art, it's art. We just will give them the right to claim that. It's just like your example of smashing the window. If you've read Jennifer Doyle's book called Hold It Against Me about performance art, it's an amazing anthology of performance art. There's many artist examples where it just sounds so improbable, and we can have a judgment about, is that art? There's a lot of smashing of windows and other slapping Marina Abramović examples, and Ron Athy doing all kinds of other crazy things. So yeah, if it sounds a little insane and an artist called it art, it's art. It's generated by a machine and a neural network was involved, it's art too. But don't ask me about whether the neural net is the artist or the human.
So by that metric, any image that you see, even if it's not captured in some sort of medium aside from your own vision, is art.
I think anything can be art. Anyone who wants to call something art should be able to. That's
Can I chime in? Yes.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think life is art. Look at that. You know how you said earlier that everything in the film is designed and placed and meant to be there? Everything is thought out. It's the same. Someone designed that cabinet right there, and that light, and that computer, and these chairs that we're sitting in. Everything is art. Everything. We don't have to create any type of separation at all.
except the signs in the street that say not art. You know, the orange box that
I've got one of those on my street.
that were covering the.
Aren't our bodies sculptures? Just like a sculptor can chisel a block of cement or whatever, we can chisel our bodies by exercising. Don't we sculpt ourselves? Don't we sculpt our images? You chose to put on that shirt today. You chose to put on that necklace. You just sculpted your image
It's
for the
art.
day.
It's art.
I love
It's
it.
art. It is.
Yeah.
It's art.
And yet,
We are art.
Performance
But-
art.
Yeah, when you say we and art and someone, you're talking about human, and the question is like, oh, what about machine that create art? Do you consider it as art or not? Right? It's a really interesting question.
I love that question as well,
Yeah.
because that's really perspective there.
But someone created a machine, so the machine created art.
Well, I think art is spontaneous, right?
Yeah.
Art is creativity, meaning it's not running from a program which we've programmed ourselves from previous experiences. It's very in the moment. It's timeless, right?
I think humans are machines.
We are.
I'm just kidding. We're just complex biological machines, that's all. So maybe you have a different opinion.
Well, no, I don't have a different opinion, but it's a long rabbit hole, and
Yeah.
so is the what is art rabbit. I mean, it's absolutely a discussion worth having, but I think it will take us a few years, and we only have a little less than an hour, probably something left. And so I tend to be a fairly pragmatic person, and to me, whether something is art, like I think you're right. I think that you can, or everyone who's been talking so far is right in that there's almost no limit to what can be art. But if you say there's no limit to what can be art, then art starts losing some meaning. Because if everything is art, then what is art? You know what I mean? And we can go down a long rabbit hole, and you can push back on that. But to try to answer your question earlier, I ask, do I like this art? Is it good art? Is it make me think? Does it make me react? Is it engaging? And I think all of those things can be yes about generative, about neural networks trained art. I think that I can go for a hike and see a breathtaking vista. I even call that art as well. And I say I love this art. It gives me peace and joy, and so that's sort of the lens that I take to that question, rather than saying like if a human wasn't directly involved, is it no longer art? If human created things were inputs to it, is it art still? And it's like yes, it's all art, and some of it I really like. And some of it I don't find any meaning in, I don't find interesting, I don't feel like it affects me. I'm not saying it's not art, I'm not saying it's bad, and it may affect you differently, but that's one way of trying to answer that question, which is almost impossible to answer.
I think that's a really good way of thinking about the question and narrowing it down into something that you can actually answer for yourself, instead of trying to answer it for everyone.
Yeah, answering for everyone is the hardest part.
So interestingly, in contemporary times, how it makes us feel has become much more important. The audience has become the judge of whether it's art or not, as opposed to maybe in the 16th century where the object was called art because of its technique or nature. So I think it also depends in time. So those neural network generated objects might not be art today, but might become art tomorrow.
Someone will be able to tell the difference.
She has something to say.
I guess it's like kind of the same thing, but I'm curious on your perspective of how technology has changed the role of the art critic, because it seems like now we're entering a time where everyone has the ability to kind of like speak their opinions equally.
Right on a 5-star scale.
Yeah, so I'm just curious, I guess, on how maybe that's the way communication has changed, is changing the way that we critique art.
Everybody can be a critic today, but not everybody will be. Everybody can talk, but not everybody can be listened to or heard. And I witnessed that firsthand. Artsy built a content platform and a publication that's the most read online art publication today by hiring really great writers and paying them well to do long-form, deeply well-researched articles, amongst maybe not so deeply researched ones as well, but the ones that people read till the end were very much the kinds where the author really spent the time understanding, talking to people, and reading and learning, and then expressing that. So technology has brought that content to people, and I think we're at the end of the cycle where like the quick and easy criticism matter. People are reading again.
I'm also curious if you guys have thoughts on like art that's created for Instagram and art that's generated maybe by, I guess, collective idea of what is good art and is like a direct response to that?
Creating art for Instagram, I'm not an Instagram creator myself, but I think one of the downsides of, I'm gonna throw out an idea. I'm not gonna answer your question. I'm sorry, I can't.
Yeah, sorry,
but
it's a hard question.
I'm gonna throw out some thoughts here. One of the downsides to the sort of what I talked about earlier, like I can make something cool and it gets seen by a million people tomorrow. The downside is that it can be very easy to then, like you get that one taste, like, oh, wow, I made that thing, and like I want that again. And so you end up conforming very much to the followers or like to that sphere. I, as a minor artist necessarily, but I ran our publication for Frame.io for 2 years, where we published articles, and it was an interesting parallel to what DB was just saying, because we start out this very deep researched, have very thoughtful articles, and it's very easy to get sucked into the quick clickbaity things, which get those clicks and get those views, right? There are, one of the things that really excites me about recent trends in sort of socially motivated creation, I guess is a way of putting it, is companies like Patreon, where you can kind of break out of that sort of being following the masses thing, where if someone is willing to just give you $1 or $2 for creating art, you only need a few hundred people to be able to sustain yourself and make, and you don't have to find those people who really agree with what you like, and you don't have to cater to everyone. You don't have to do the, like if you have an Instagram video and it starts with a scantily clad woman, you'll get more views, right? That's just how the internet works, and it's sad, and like it's really that's how it works. But if you find people who really like your type of oil painting, and you can just get a few, 100 of them to give you a few dollars every month to produce that, then I know people who have really been able to support themselves that way. I think it's amazing. Like, I think Patreon is fantastic, and I can't wait for the day when we have a real cryptocurrency that is ubiquitous, whereby I can pay someone a few cents for something without paying the credit card a few dollars for the few cents I paid them.
Can I add something about you've described popularity as a metric, and this is the clickbaity stuff, and Instagram artists that are there for popularity. It's easy to see that as a negative thing, and I don't care about those super popular things. I want to encourage everyone to think about them as a positive thing, because wherever there is popularity contests, it's a tip of a pyramid. It's or the bottom of the pyramid, whichever way you want to look at it. But it's the most people care about something, it actually creates niches underneath. And so for every Instagram post about some not so smart person somewhere doing something really even more stupid, there is somewhere 10 people who will be interested in something very small. For every Instagram, there is an arena. If you don't know that site, I encourage you to check it out. And it's very niche. And those things can be because the popularity contest pulls things up. The Starry Night is what encourages children to make art and to become artists. These are memories. It's extraordinarily popular, and yet it wants everyone to be an artist because it made you feel something when you were a kid reading those books. So it's okay. Let the popularity contest be there.
And I don't really mind artists, being on, like my best friend is an artist, and she puts her stuff up on Instagram, and there are a lot of people that feel they may not know that they're into art. They may not be a collector like that goes to Artsy or whatever. They may not realize, but if she puts hashtag skulls, and then somebody, who doesn't feel like an art collector, and they feel sort of that's not them. But then they might discover her art because she works with bones and skulls, and they like that stuff. May find her, discover her, and also Instagram can be just a visual resume for artists. So like when I see new people, like I don't just follow them. I look for like 15, 20 of their posts to see, wow, I like these guys. I'm gonna follow them. I think it's great for small artists that may not be in galleries, or even to create a collector, to create an art fan who thought it was too highfalutin for their lifestyle, So I think that it can be useful for that, and I think it democratizes a little bit, like who can sell their art, kind of like what Etsy does. So it just gives a platform to just be discovered.
But let's not think about it too vertically. Buying art is one aspect of this. I'm on Instagram, and please follow my Instagram if you'd like my art Instagram. But most of it I use to exchange works with other artists. I give away my drawings, and so I have artists regularly contacting me, and we go to each other's studios and bring each other works. And I don't try to sell them. So that's a completely different use case. I know people who use Instagram for other purposes, maybe inspiration, in their daily life, for nothing to do with art at all. There's all kinds of uses.